Hey everyone, this is Andre Soklal. This is my YouTube channel. I stated before in previous videos, this YouTube channel is not one of those where I'm chasing after subscribers. It's very personal to me. For those of you who do know me, I have the EXTV YouTube channel, which is very different. That's a whole separate venture. This is more personal things, and who likes it, who doesn't, it's fine. And I only put content that is really I could relate to. So everybody knows I'm an Inter Milan fan. Today was UEFA Champions League final. It was a couple hours ago, and I'm not in my usual studio. I'm in an office, and I'm recording this really late at night because it was horrible. I mean, it's all news. Inter Milan lost 5-0 to PSG. I'm not going to go into details. That's what EXTV is for. You could check that out if you want. I'll put a little thing up here and a little link, and you can head across and see where I do analysis for those of you who don't know me. But this is for Inter Milan fans across the world and in the Caribbean and in Trinidad and Tobago. I'm proud to be a part of the Inter Milan club of Trinidad and Tobago. But I have to admit, I had a long drive home from looking at the game, and the first thing I will say, and this is not some detailed analysis, this is more personal reaction. Inter just did not show up today. They did not show up today. It was hurtful because I know what this team is capable of. I actually did a preview of this. It's written, which is very rare these days. A lot of guys do YouTube videos, and gals and people. You could head over to extvmedia.com if you want to have a look. The last Champions League final, just to show that I can be, I could take off the fanboy sunglasses and be an analyst. You just look at those articles. I pretty much highlighted why PSG were the favorites and the strengths and weaknesses. There's even another example when Inter played Manchester City a couple of years ago. So you could check that out, drop your comments. I would appreciate your support there as well. So the game ended 5-0, and what really disappointed me the most, I think was the most painful part of this particular game, is not that we lost, which is painful already, but the manner in which Inzaghi and his men lost. They conceded the first goal. I'm not going to nitpick because I think overall it's very difficult for me to find positives in this game. DeMarco, we saw that he was vulnerable defensively against Barcelona. While he has been a great servant for Inter Milan, he has had an up and down season. Offensively, he's great. I think in that 3 at the back system that Inzaghi uses, it works for him. I think it highlights his strengths, kind of takes away his weaknesses a little bit. But, we saw it against Barcelona, and we saw it again today. I think all the goals were extremely avoidable. I think the manner in which the team responded was, I think, the most hurtful part. And I spoke to all the guys after the game, and we were all trying to, rationalize and process what took place. This is, by the time you see this, it's probably about, I'm recording this about, 4 or 5 hours after the game. So I had a long drive home. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, which is the Caribbean. And like I said, I'm not going to go into a very technical assessment. That's what I do on my other channel. This is as an Inter Milan fan. And the lack of response from the team is what I think really pissed off a lot of Inter Milan fans. There's a lot of YouTube channels, Uncle Sharma and a lot of guys. Love those guys. You could check them out. They've been doing this a long time now. This may be my only Inter Milan video. But it just shocked me. This is a team that fought against Bayern Munich, fought against Barcelona. They were not perfect, and I will never pretend to say that they were perfect. This is an aging team with a lot of financial issues. Truth be told, I could have hidden behind the excuse that, Inter Milan, punched above their weight. And it depends on how you look at it, they did. Emotions are very high. Some people want Inzaghi to be fired. And that's sometimes a knee-jerk reaction after a final like this. After getting to 2 Champions League finals. It kind of reminds me of Valencia in the early 2000s with Hector Cooper. Nobody really remembers the second place team. Inter Milan is a team that really built back its reputation. However, I think this game really hurt the reputation of Inter Milan that they built over the last couple of years. It's just crazy how football goes, because putting emotions aside, I think Simone Inzaghi, while he's praised all over Europe, and I like him, I was a skeptic when they first hired him, but he has gotten the results more so than Conte. I know a lot of people liked Conte, Antonio Conte. I mean, he got us that Scudetto after a long time. He left because of money, and that's my big issue with him. You get about 2-3 seasons out of him, and then he's gone. We went from possibly getting 3 trophies, which I never subscribed to that thought, by the way. And by the way, just to let you all know, there's no structure to this video. This is honestly the most raw reaction you'll ever get. I didn't subscribe to that whole treble thing. I didn't think that we had the squad, the finances required to compete on all fronts. And that's not me just trying to be, a loser mentality. I just think, certain players weren't performing. Taremi, Arnautovic, Taremi was supposed to be this, guy challenging for the number 1 spot in the lineup. Just didn't deliver. And a lot of the strain went on Lautaro Martinez and Thuram. And, kudos to those guys. They did great in the Champions League. The defense was not as strong as it was a couple of years ago. We have been leaking a lot of goals. We are trying to get a lot of deals. Inter Milan is kind of like the money ball of clubs right now. And on the plus side, I think taking away the pain of losing all these trophies, I think with all things considered from a financial perspective, they did really well. However, Morata, and they have indicated, they have a plan. The profile is to go for more younger players. And, that makes sense. And, we have to keep sight of that. It's very easy now to be like, just get rid of Inzaghi and whatever. We don't know if he's going to end up into Saudi Arabia or not. He doesn't strike me as the kind of coach that would go there. For those of you who have been watching football my entire life, this is a typical thing that happens before a Champions League final. There's a lot of hearsay and, things that are said to disrupt the team. By the way, take nothing away from PSG. They played really well. They almost got knocked out of the Champions League. Luis Enrique is a coach I always admired. I remembered when he was initially at Roma and he started building his project, and for whatever reason Roma just didn't have faith in him, and he did the treble at Barcelona, did a great job, and then that situation with his daughter and so on, he got rid of what some people deemed to be the problematic areas in PSG, and he created a young team. Which I'm not picking on Mbappe and so on, but he was kind of the face of what was wrong with PSG. That's sort of I like him as a player. I think he's great. But anyway, back to Inter. So the disturbing thing for me is that Inter did not respond from the second goal all the way to the end. Nothing. I was expecting a reaction in the second half. Nothing. There was nothing. There was no hope. They were like, this is me grabbing onto straws. There was a set piece that we probably could have scored that may have changed the dynamic a little bit. It probably would not have been 5-0, but it probably would have put PSG on the back foot, kind of like what we did with Barcelona. Nothing. We had some half chances. We barely could keep possession. It got to a point where it seemed as if Inter was not even trying to get possession. As much as I love Inzaghi's tactics, I think it's very clever, dynamic. I think this is another situation where a plan B was needed. A perfect situation of this was against Atletico Madrid last year. We had a strong team, and Atletico Simeone, to his credit, found a way to disrupt our midfield. And once again, PSG did that. Barella, Chanaloglu, Mkhitaryan, they were just completely played off the park. They could not keep the ball. They could not play the combination passes out of the back. This is what Inter do. They pass the ball at the back. They draw in the opposition and they send the ball forward. That just didn't work. And that's, again, credit to Luis Enrique for preparing his team. One thing, I said it to the guys who were there, and girls. There were girls there as well. Shout out to everybody. I think that Luis Enrique did a wonderful job of neutralizing Inter's ability to play out of a press. Usually, especially if you go back to 2023 and even when Conte was there, Inter were they would thrive with teams who would press. But of course, we are no longer that watertight team that would not concede goals, even though we only conceded 1 or 2 in the group stages. I believe that was a little bit of a deceptive statistic. I think Inzaghi looked at, when pretty much we had that rough January and I think it was March when we lost to Roma and Bologna, I think. So that is a real problem. The aging players, Mkhitaryan just can't run 90 minutes. Kudos to him, I like him. He's been a great servant for Inter. Chanaloglu and Barella. I think Barella needs some help. In the wing-back position, I love DiMarco. He is one of my favorite players. But towards the end, from January, he was kind of 50-50. He was not 100%. I think I would have started Augusto. But, Inzaghi sees something. But there's another point I want to raise as well. And as you could tell, I'm completely crushed by this. But there's 2 examples in the season where I think this team, because of its age, it showed that Inter, when they get breaks, it's not necessarily a good thing. So one of the things that did hurt Inter, there was a lot of injuries. The rotation of the squad, it worked for a while and they were praised for it. But when we qualified out of the group stage, the table, it was seen as a benefit, like, okay, good, we came in the top 8. So that means we do not have to play in the playoff spots. We can rest players, and that did not work for us. We actually did not do well. And I paid attention to that, and I raised that point in one of my conversations in one of those channels I did a match preview with, where even though a lot of players were rested heading into this Champions League final, Pavard was recovering, Lautaro, Thuram, Barella and those guys, I did notice that if those players, when they come back, they need a couple games to get their stride. And I did have some concerns about that. If they come back, they're going to have that, rust. Because, match fitness is a proper thing. And, they didn't have that. So it showed today. They just did not perform. The players did not respond. And I was shocked by the lack of response. I said that about 3 times in this video, maybe 4. And that's something that's truly disturbing. Even while we're here, I'm going to pull up the stats because the possession sounded absolutely scary. Why can't I get it? Inter Milan versus PSG. So here we go. Inter Milan possession. All right. So according to this, 60% versus 40 didn't seem like that. It seemed like a lot less. 23 shots versus 8. 8 on target versus 2 of ours on target. The passing accuracy was 87% versus 81%. I do have some stats from SofaScore that I will probably do a reaction, but like I said, that will be a more neutral reaction, and I am capable of doing both. So that's why I'm doing this on my personal channel. Folks, listen, let me know what you think. Are there Inter Milan fans in Trinidad and Tobago outside the ones that I already know? Let me know what you think. Is Inzaghi going to leave? I don't think he should, but I can understand why he left. People are already telling me, I was seeing reports that he was leaving. That's not confirmed, so I don't know. Morata came out with some statements and saying they're sticking to the original plan, which I think is good. I think financially Inter in a better place. So these next couple of weeks, and then also how they negotiate the FIFA Club World Cup, which that's such an inconvenient club, especially for Inter, because we had a tiring season. So we'll see how that goes. I think we're grouped with the River Plate, Monterrey, and I can't remember who else. So even if we go with a smaller team, River Plate is that's a decent team with some decent players. Some of the players on the older side, so it's a good mix of youth and some experienced Argentinian players in there. And, Monterrey is a very strong Mexican team. I've been there. I stayed there for a month and a half, maybe 6 weeks when I was with my country's national team, the women's team. And, even though everybody talks about Sergio Ramos, it's a very strong team in Mexico. So, the one silver lining I will say is that we are financially in a better place. Morata is one of the best at getting the right players for systems. If Inzaghi is going to stay or go, I guess that will determine the kind of players they are going to bring in. I can't think of a coach right now because the game is too fresh in my mind who I think would be ideal. I heard names being thrown around like Kivu and I can't remember who else. I don't know right now if that's the best move. And sometimes maybe it's cool to just sit for a couple of days, chill, relax. But this result is going to hurt for a long time. Nothing against PSG, but I think we could have put up a better fight. Some people are comparing the 2023 team. Yes, I would say it is stronger. Defensively, we were stronger, and players like if there's going to be a clear out, I know Correa is going to go. I like Correa. I used to like him. He just didn't perform for Inter. Then there's Anatovic. Taremi, unfortunately, I don't know if they're going to give him another run. I mean, he did do well in Portugal. It just didn't work out. I don't think they're necessarily bad players. It just didn't work out. They just did not perform. And sometimes that happens. We sign these players and they didn't perform. I think Acerbi, as much as I love him, they're going to have to get some centre-backs in there. They're going to have to kind of freshen up that midfield. I think Mkhitaryan, Barella takes a lot of strain. I think Conte tried to address this with Sensi and those guys, but then we all know what happened with Sensi. And then, I think Brozovic, a player with his characteristics, would have been good in a game like this. The wing backs, we need to have a look at our wing backs. So, and I'm pretty sure they know this. Sometimes we as fans think we know more than these guys, but Morata, I think he knows this within our budget because we don't have a blank check. We don't. So, those players are going to go. I heard rumors of certain players. We'll see. But we definitely need some people to share the goal scoring output with Lautaro and Thuram. I'm hoping, Bastoni stays. I'm hoping Thuram stays. I think they will, but you never know. Lautaro Martinez. I can't see him leaving, but you never know. Sommer as well, didn't have a great game. Did I say Barella already? But, there's a good young spine there, but it needs some work. I think the wing backs need some work. I think they need players that really fit their system and have youth. And I'm all for experience. I'm not going to be one of those guys who say, oh, it's an old team and we should get rid of them. But wow, that was tough. So, folks, like I said, that was my thoughts, as an Inter Milan fan. I said this before, and I'll end with saying this, the result was really demoralizing. But like I told everybody else, it's the manner in which we lost. It's very easy to say, hey, this team was terrible and whatever, but they are not as terrible as this performance showed. And I think this is a team that put all their eggs in this basket. And that's what confuses me even more, because they said, okay, listen, we really want the Champions League. That's what we want. Even if you lost, at least go down fighting. And I didn't see that. I did see a little bit from Thuram and Lautaro. I saw it from Bastoni, but they just seemed completely not there. And for anybody who follows Inter Milan, it's easy if you're neutral and you don't know them, you just say they played terribly, but it was shocking to me. It was shocking to me. So it's probably 1 a.m. in my country right now. It's 5 or 6 hours after the game. So let me know your thoughts. This is not about subscribers and likes and so on, but it's about reaching out to people who like this team. And shout out to my Inter brothers and sisters around the world. This is how it goes sometimes, and when we do achieve victory, it makes it all the more sweet. I do have a bit of a pee for people in my country. There's a lot of glory hunting PSG fans. They are not PSG fans, and I'm not afraid to say that. Unless you're a young kid and you're just getting into football. But if you've been watching football and then you want to come and say to me that you've been a die-hard PSG fan, I can't take you seriously. I really can't. So those are my thoughts. Like I said, if you want to check out my other content, I'll put a link below or up here, wherever it goes, and you can have a look. I'm not a regular Inter Milan poster, so there's a lot of guys who do this on a regular basis, and Uncle Sharma and a couple other guys. I can't remember it. I think it's Inter Worldwide is his name. So yeah, so shout out to those guys. I would love to hear what they have to say, and we just have to take it on the chin, and everybody has to kind of deal with it how they want to deal with it, and we'll see what next season brings. So with that being said, I'm going to probably sleep in tomorrow, and I work a lot in football in general, so there's a lot of national football, international football I have to look forward to, but this game was brutal. So like I said, feel free to comment, like and share if you want, and it's not about views but about attracting people who really like this team. So no disrespect to PSG, and I have to say a salute to my Inter Milan fans in Trinidad and Tobago and in general. But in Trinidad and Tobago, we are not arrogant fans, but we just didn't expect to lose this way. And there's no way to describe this other than I felt this one. So, like I said, my videos are not on consistent topics. This is my personal YouTube channel. I do a lot of my passion projects, which are very few on this. So yeah, so folks, I'll see you when I see you.